Well, joining us now on the PHLY Eagles podcast, the voice of Madden NFL from EA Sports, the voice you will hear on Sunday's broadcast, Eagles-Bengals, my friend, Charles Davis. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fran. Appreciate it. Yeah, before my partner gets mad, I'm one of the voices.
Yes, of course.
And now they've added more, which is good. Some really recognizable people. But to be on with Brandon Gaudin all these years, I've been pretty lucky guy.
Well, I always get excited when I see, all right, who are the slate of teams that the Eagles are going to play in the AFC, because then it's just an excuse midseason for me to be able to catch up with you, both on camera and off camera. And this week is one of those weeks. Eagles, Bengals, obviously this is a team you're familiar with. And so I do want to start there on that side of the football. You look at this Cincinnati Bengals team, obviously some ups and downs over the course of this year. What's your general vibe on this team? Obviously their win-loss record doesn't speak too highly because of those preseason expectations. But where are you at right now with Cincinnati?
One, we're still, all of us who follow the NFL, how is it that they start so slowly every year?
Yep.
And excuses before, Joe Burrow's health being the main one, but this year he was healthy. So they still started 0-3.
Sure, yeah.
And opened with New England at home and lost that one. So that's always the puzzler for everyone because they're too talented to start that way. Watching the offense, we know they can go off at any time. I mean, they lost a game to Baltimore this year where Joe Burrow threw 5 touchdown passes, and they just looked the part.
Yep.
Still don't run it a heck of a lot. I know Mixon's not there, but they really like Chase Brown. They got Zach Moss, but that's just not their thing. They'd rather pitch it out there to Chase, pitch it out there to T. Higgins, who, by the way, has changed his game a little bit. I think you've seen Fran. He's not just a jump ball guy now. He's not just a downfield, beat you up, box you out, go get it. He's running routes underneath and catching it and giving us some yards after catch. It's really weird. His yards per catch are down, but it feels like he's a better target.
Yeah. It's interesting how that works, right?
You know, it's a very strange thing, and he's actually getting more balls thrown his way. But they can go off at any time. We know that. Defensively, they've struggled. Lou Anarumo is one of the best coordinators in the game, but when you don't have a defensive line, which he did not have, they were pretty decimated. Last couple of games, they've started to have it, and I think last game was the first time they had all the guys they projected back to play. And lo and behold, in that ball game, linebackers Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, both double-digit tackles. You keep them clean, they can go get people. Secondary has been a little bit of a struggle, giving up some bigger plays than you might expect. But I feel like they're the type of team that can round into form. But the funny part is with them in Philadelphia, they both played the same people the last 2 weeks. They both played Cleveland and New York Giants. Both won. But I think this game is the game that everyone around the league goes, okay, whoever wins this one, we feel pretty good about again. We think they're good. They're not going to get enough. They're not going to get much credit for Cleveland and the New York Giants, and I'm not doing that to cast aspersions at either. But neither one is that great. And I'll leave it with this: Cincinnati, their 3 wins this year. The teams that they beat are a combined 4-17.
Yep. No, it's a really good point. And honestly, like going into every matchup, there's always a couple things where I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm excited to see like what the coaching decision is in terms of the game plan. And for this game, for me, I want to ask you about Vic Fangio, and this is a coach that you've obviously been watching for a long time. You know, you were at Fox previously in the NFC and San Francisco and Chicago. You make the move to CBS in 2020. That works right in concert with him moving over to the Denver Broncos. And so I know you've done a lot of his games over the years. What's your take on how he's going to handle Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in this matchup? Because it feels like 9 out of every 10 balls goes to those 2 guys in this offense. It's very similar to the Eagles in that way. You're Vic Fangio. Like, how do you feel like he's going to try and handle this matchup?
Wouldn't surprise me at all. You know, Vic is the king of quarters coverage, right?
Yeah.
So, he's going to do that. He's going to do a lot of cover 6. Could throw some 8 at you. You know, they play a lot of off coverage, Fran. Okay, like 70% of the time they're going to be in off coverage.
Yep.
And this one wouldn't surprise me at all. Vic said, okay, Chase, Higgins, I got a corner for each of them, but I also have a safety or a nickel for each. I wouldn't be surprised they double and say, okay, show your hand, Cincinnati. Who else do you trust?
Right. Yep.
Because Andre Yoshivash, the kid out of Princeton, who's had kind of a hot start, 4 catches in the last 4 games.
Yep.
Okay. Charlie Jones, who's their kick returner, and you and I both watched him coming out of Buffalo, Iowa, and Purdue. And he caught 100-plus balls, I think, that last year at Purdue with Aiden O'Connell as his quarterback.
Yeah.
I think he's got like 5 or 6 catches on the year. Okay. So is the tight end position going to get some of that? Can that eat up some of it? And if so, who's it going to be? Because remember, they've been trying to figure out who that pass catching tight end is for a long time now. They've tried a few different, it hasn't really worked. But Grant Calcaterra has played pretty well there lately. So that could be, I'm sorry, I got Calcaterra with the Eagles. Wrong team. But Drew Sample has been over there, much more of a blocker for them. So can a guy that Philadelphia fans would know because he's native Pennsylvania, Mike Gesicki, can he now be that guy? And earlier in the year, he put up 91 yards against Kansas City. So I really feel like Vic's going to say, I'm going to deal with your outside guys. Show me your hand on who you really want to trust and go to and make them start hurting me before I get anywhere else. The other part is Orlando Brown, tackle's got a bad calf, may not go. Vic might throw a few things his way just to see what's going on because the pass rush has really increased in tempo in the last couple of weeks. So he may throw a little something on him there. And you and I both know he doesn't like to blitz a whole lot.
Right.
That doesn't mean he's above it if he finds an advantage.
Yeah, and the Eagles took advantage of a backup left tackle a week ago in New York, and we'll see if they have that opportunity to do that here in this game. I do want to go back over to the other side of the football. We talked about Lou Anarumo and some of the issues they've had defensively. Obviously, a lot of injuries early on. It felt like, look, a couple years ago, they go to the Super Bowl. They had this hot run, and Anarumo was known as one of the top defensive coordinators in football. What is in your mind, like, what is like his mission statement as a coach? And then why isn't that not coming to fruition? Is it all just basically the pass rush is just not there? Has it been injury? What's your mindset right now with this defense?
I think of something DJ Reader said to me when he's in Cincinnati. He's like, oh man, Lou loves us all, but those guys in the back end, those are his babies, man. And I feel like what he's telling me is the game's going to be played from back there forward.
Yeah.
That's where it all goes down. Well, you can do that really well when Von Bell is playing really well and Jesse Bates is next to him playing really well. That's where they controlled the middle of the field with those safeties. And then the corners that they had was Awuzie at that point, right? Yep. They had guys that they could do stuff with. Well, since that time, that whole secondary is transformed. Remember, Nick Scott was there last year, and they didn't mention him because he couldn't tackle well in the open field. Von Bell was in Carolina last year. So they lost that leadership that was back there. Jordan Battle, the rookie out of Alabama, was a good player. He ended up having to start 7 times. They never got the continuity that they wanted back there. Was Dax Hill a corner? Was Dax Hill a safety? This year, Dax Hill was a corner, and now he's out for the year with an ACL. DJ Turner, built like a nickel, is playing outside corner for him and having to start out there. So they're trying to get everything in relative concert on the back end. Because Cam Taylor-Britt he looks the part. When he's on his game, he plays the part. But he's given up some big plays this year. And I think that's probably driving Lou a little bit crazy. But when Cam Britt is on it, now that's a tough cover for you now. That's a big man, strong, physical, makes plays on the football. And that's what they're kind of counting on, him rounding into form, because the defensive front now has all their people back. And by the way, who's blocking Trey Hendrickson anyway? Nobody.
No, and honestly, that's like the biggest mismatch, like matchup that I'm most concerned about. If I'm the Eagles, like going in, like you got to make sure that you handle Trey Hendrickson. Fred Johnson's over there at left tackle. To me, like what Trey Hendrickson does is the kryptonite for Fred Johnson. Like he sets up his speed to power rushes so well. He's so technically sound. He can win in a multitude of ways. So that would be my biggest concern if I was the Eagles going into this game.
Agreed. And that means, how do you want to handle helping Fred Johnson? Because the idea of you leaving Fred Johnson one-on-one, no coach is going to do that in this situation. Your best left tackles in the game get help when Trey Hendrickson's out there. So you're not going to have your backup swing tackle. Hey, Fred, can you handle him so I can run some exotic stuff over here? Baltimore's not going to do that. So are you bringing the extra tight end over to spend time with him? And after that, he's back staying in. We're not going to jet him or scat him out. We're going to keep him in to keep an eye over there. Are you going to run some extra tight end formations to make sure he has the everything's kind of muddy for him to try and get back to the backfield. Going to do a number of things to try and keep him that way. Plus, you occupy him. Like you always occupy the best defensive ends, meaning you run the screens, you run the draws, you run plays at them, so they can't just get comfortable with the idea of chasing. Because when they chase, they usually wreak havoc, all right? Because not many people can slow them down. But if you run things at them where they have to think about it, slow themselves down a little bit, heck, I can't just rush the quarterback. Here comes another one of those screens. That's the type of thing that you're probably going to get out of Kellen Moore in this one. Not all the time, because you don't want to run it so much that you wreck yourself.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to make plays, but enough to make them angry, chip away at their timing. I remember seeing a game a few years ago when Josh McDaniels was the offense coordinator in New England, and they were on that great streak when Mac Jones was a rookie, won 7 in a row, and Cleveland came to town with Myles Garrett. And in the first quarter and a half, they ran more things at Myles Garrett than they did away. And next thing I know, I looked up in the scoreboard, New England's up almost 30. So it's not just that doesn't mean A to B equals C, but they were able to neutralize a great pass rusher like that. Kellen Moore is going to try and do the same thing here.
And for our viewers, they remember all the times the Eagles have tried to do that with Micah Parsons, and that's when you have Lane Johnson going up against Micah Parsons. Right. So you want to try and do that certainly in this game with Fred Johnson going up against Hendrickson. My last question for you, Charles, then we'll get you out of here. Looking at Jalen Hurts, we talked a lot about it on the show this week. What's your take on Jalen and what you've seen, not just over the course of this season as a whole, but certainly over these last game or two as well?
We saw the absolute zenith in the Super Bowl against Kansas City when he's probably the best player on the field that day. Yep. Like he was amazing. And things have not stayed at that level, and it's always hard to do. But they haven't dropped totally off the cliff, as some people would lead you to believe. Right. Like when you watch it, I'm like, people are telling me this is the worst thing. It's not. But it's hard to hit those heights. But I feel like the last couple of weeks, the consistency is starting to come back a little bit. But the consistency now, Fran, has to pay off on third down, because we're talking about both of these teams that are so good offensively, or have the players to be so good offensively. How you throw a 1 in 13, on the board on third down, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I do realize that some of those third downs with Philadelphia are run to get to fourth down.
Sure.
So I'll take some of those away. But the numbers don't really match up. You really don't want to get there and make that your steady diet. Hey, let's go for it on fourth down. That's just, I know that's their MO in terms of being aggressive, but you want to have that as kind of your whole card. You don't want to have that as the first thing that you play out of the deck. And that's what they got to get figured out. And the funny part is Cincinnati's going through the same thing. These offenses are really good, but for whatever reason, they're not converting on third down. Fran, let's be honest about it. If you said Cincinnati and Philadelphia, their offenses, where would you rank them on third downs when the season's all done? You'd say both easily, safely in the top 10, pushing for the top 5. It doesn't, because of the way they run offense, the offensive minds, the people playing quarterback. Right now, both of them struggling to figure it out.
It's so interesting, the issues surrounding both teams and the strengths with both teams. Very, very similar on both sides. The quarterbacks, they look very, very talented. They go about it in different ways, but the duality of that, I think, is one of the more interesting themes for Sunday. Charles, we're going to let you go because you got to get on a flight to Philly. But thanks so much for joining us here on the PHLY Eagles Show, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot, Fran. I appreciate it. I appreciate you all the time. And you're right about these quarterbacks. One of them has 57 NFL starts. The other has 59. They are attached at the hip, and both of them are central to their teams wanting to win ball games. We all silly like the mayor.